Hello again, I'm Robert Vithin, and here we are again. Well, hopefully we're here again, and you've been checking out my journey as I go back to 1991 and rank 140 albums from that year. I definitely appreciate you still being here. This is quite a long journey. This video series took quite a bit of effort. And yeah, just wanted to do something just bombast for the end of the year. Didn't want to do a year-end countdown of the 2024 albums because I am not qualified for that, so I leave that to others. So I just picked the year 1991. Again, I was 18 and 19 years old in that year. Late teenagers, striking out on my own with all this great new music, and the more I listened to, the more I wanted to listen to. So I've mentioned this in another video. It started off a smaller countdown, you know, top 91, and then it became 100, then 120, and then 140. So we are up to number 81. And you know how sometimes movies can be great because they're so bad, they're unintentionally good. You know, it's like so bad it's good. You know, albums can apparently be like that as well, with some of the unintentional humor that goes on in the album. I don't know if the band wanted the album to be good for the reason I put this kind of higher up on the list, but it's here anyway. And the band I'm talking about is Bullet Boys, another one of those bands that came in right there, right before everything kind of fell apart for that kind of sound, but they got a couple albums snuck in there. Their 1991 one is called Freak Show. And yeah, check that out. And it's a, well, let's say they're probably really big fans of Van Halen. The lead singer definitely wants to be David Lee Roth in more than just a couple songs. I mean, he's got the whole, everything that David Lee Roth does, this guy tries to do with the exception of the shabba-da-boo-ba-ba-da-ba. He doesn't do that. But that's about the only thing he's not doing, trying to sound like David Lee Roth, especially early on in the album. So he's got that going on. They got the Van Halen harmonies that try to come on as well, but the guitar squealing like randomly like Van Halen. It's just they really want to be Van Halen in a lot of these songs. They do switch it up, and they want to be Motley Crue in one particular song called "Thrill That Kills." Instead of "She's got the looks to kill," it's got "Thrill That Kills." I mean, it's the same exact thing. But they really shine, though, once the album starts to play for a while and you get into songs like "Do Me Raw." That's a standout. This guy wants to be done raw. Lay me on the bed, tie me up, and do me raw. And then the very next song is, you're ripping me apart. Well, what did you expect, man? You just screamed you wanted to be done raw. Now you're being ripped apart. That's how it works. Have him put some lubricant on that thing next time. You're going to end up with a rosebud, man. You don't want that. So yeah, and then it gets really strange at the very end. The very final track on this album is called Huge. And it literally is just the singer going, "Have you got the balls? Have you got the balls? Have you got the balls?" Over and over, that's the entire song. It's called Huge. Have you got the balls? I mean, it's not like AC/DC Big Balls, where the whole song is, you know, all these different things, and it's all based on the double meaning of balls, meaning testicles, and also ballroom events. No, this is just literally, have you got the balls, over and over again. And then I think at the very end, they say, "We do," and the song ends. So, you know, I like the sleazy stuff with the glam rock, with the hair metal, whatever you want to call it. The sleazier the better. I've said that a couple of times. But these guys got the sleaze, but they're just not very good at it. That's the problem. The unintentional humor, I'm going to bump it up a little bit on the list just for that. But they're not really good at the sleaze stuff or a lot of stuff. So yeah, I can't really take the Bullet Boys Freak Show any higher than this. I do like the slide guitar action at the end of the title track, though. That's pretty cool. So I'll give them that. Leonard Skinner makes a comeback in 1991 with a new lineup, including the little brother on lead vocals. And of course, the other brother was already in 38 Special. And this actually sounds to me a little more like 38 Special than it does Leonard Skinner. Now you could see... you can hear, actually, Ronnie Van Zant, you know, he is missing because that great songwriting, those great hooks, all that. This is more of like just kind of your generic bar rock. It's done really well. Band is really tight. I mean, it's Leonard Skinner, or at least some of it's Leonard Skinner, some of it's new guys. I mean, Ed King is back. He hadn't been in Leonard Skinner since like 75 or so. Artemis Pyle is gone. So they got a new drummer, but, obviously Steve Gaines is not a part of it. And also Albert Collins is not in it. He passed away a couple of years before this was out. So you got some Leonard Skinner guys in there that are kind of come and gone, and you got some new guys, and you got the little brother. So that's Leonard Skinner 1991. That's the name of the album. And it's your basic bar rock type of stuff, some boogie rock in there. They're checking all the boxes. They're making sure they got a song about the working man, and they got the song about growing up, poor as a child, but life was still better then, and life was so simple. They got the song about, hey, Southern women. They got a nice rollicking boogie rock song, Smokestack Lightning, to kick the whole thing off. They got a song in there called Money Man. This is where everything kind of takes a turn. They got a song in there called Money Man that's all about the music business and how they're a hard-working band, and they love making music and going all over the world, traveling and all that down the road, and playing the clubs and the bars and everything for the people. They love it. But this Money Man, their manager, whoever it is, record exec, whatever, he's taking all the money. Okay, well, halfway through, the Money Man, somehow, they don't say how, but he gets arrested for something. So I'm assuming embezzling or improperly handling funds or something like that. The Money Man's in prison now, and he's on his knees giving blowjobs. So they don't say that word, but that's pretty much what's going on. He's wearing a dress, and he's on his knees, and he's shooting, but he's not there to pray or to shoot the breeze or whatever. He's somebody's bitch or what? I don't know what the hell. It's like, where the hell did this come from? God, they must... I don't know if that's a true story or if they don't like this guy and this is kind of what they've imagined they'd hope would happen to him if he goes to prison or whatever. But yeah, Money Man, it's like, okay, well, that escalated quickly. They got a great song on there, a ballad called Mama, where it's about, the guy's mom, and he's not ready to let her go. She's dying. She's on her deathbed, but he's not ready for her to pass on yet. And it seems like it's pretty much heartfelt. It seems pretty authentic from the heart. And I definitely experienced that. I lost my mother a couple of years ago, and it was a slow thing. It was Alzheimer's and dementia and whatever, and when you lose a parent or a loved one like that, it's the end is inevitable. It's coming. It's a slow thing, but you still don't want it to happen. You're still not ready for it, and that was kind of touching. I don't know, how heartfelt that really was or whatever, but kind of struck me, and that was kind of unexpected. Right there towards the end of the album, so I gave him a little boost in the countdown for that. But you're not going to get pronounced Leonard Skinner here or Second Helping or any of those great hooks or any of those really memorable, classic songs that are just the first time you hear them, you're like, man, that's incredible. Free Bird, or something like that. But as far as a basic rock, barroom rock, road group, they're out on the road, they're playing the music they love, they're rocking out. This is that album, a great album for that. It's like a great 38 special album, basically. So Leonard Skinner, 1991. If you haven't heard it, and you're a big 38 special fan, you might want to check it out. Okay, so now we are up to actually Vanessa Williams and The Comfort Zone. And surprise, surprise, I'd never heard this album before. I heard some of the singles off of it. I used to go to this video store all the time. Like 1991 was one of my years where I was going to a video store like every day, and that's before I started working at Blockbuster the same year. But I used to go to this kind of local mom and pop store, and they would always have this soft rock station on, and it seemed like every time I was in there, it was playing Save the Best for Last, which is on this album. And so I got to know that song strictly by being at a video store every day, because I didn't listen to soft rock radio stations, at home or in the car or whatever, but that song was so huge, I knew it strictly from being in a store all the time. And so, yeah, Save the Best for Last is on here. I don't know, it seems like it should be the last song, but of course, well, the last song is called Goodbye, so I guess that's fitting too. But yeah, Vanessa Williams, she is, for those that don't remember or weren't around at the time, she was a Miss America or Miss Universe or something like that. She had her crown stripped from her because photos of her resurfaced where she had done a nude photo layout, and back in those days, that was a no-no. You're going to have your crown taken away from you if you do that. People that were not around those times and too young for that probably are blown away by something like that. Like, huh? You mean you nude photos and you You can be first lady and have nude photos now. So it's like, it was a different time, obviously. But yeah, Vanessa Williams, she's got that going for her, as far as I'm concerned. So it makes her a little more interesting than your usual 90s smooth, light R&B artist. I always thought she had a little bit of an edge to her that was interesting. So I finally got to hear her whole album all the way through. It starts off with a song that has a lot of sampling in it and that kind of thing, and then the Cabbage Patch drum techniques and whatever. I have never been into that. I don't like the New Jack stuff, and that seems like that was everywhere around this time for R&B music, and that's the reason why I was so in love with soul music and funk music from the late 60s and 70s and into the 80s, and then when the 90s came, I just completely abandoned it. It was because of that sound just being the primary sound all the time, and record scratching and stuff. I hated all that stuff, and that's featured on the title track. The second track, though, was also a single, much, much, much better. She is not going to come running back to you. She's going to find somebody else to give it to. And then the third song, she's got work to do when she gets home, and the work is to make sure the partner is satisfied. So yeah, she's got that edge. She's kind of gritty, but the music itself is very much lush. It's the R&B stuff that was out in the 90s, or it's the smooth stuff. She's got this smoothed out jazz tune on there called What Would I Tell My Heart? And I can just hear Grammy people that make sure who's going to get the Grammys. I can just see them listening to that going, ooh, throwback lounge jazz song. Let's give her some Grammy nominations. And of course they did. Two of a Kind is an interesting track on here because it features a sample. I've said that I'm not into hip hop, but I like some of the party stuff at the time. And Digital Underground was, they had the Humpty Dance and all that kind of stuff. So Do What You Like or whatever. I thought that was kind of cool. So I ended up getting their tape at the time. And they had a song on there called Freaks of the Industry. And this song, Two of a Kind, on the Vanessa Williams album, samples a piece of that. Now, this track on the Digital Underground album goes, ooh, I like me some Vanessa. Ooh, not Vanessa with the singing career, but the X-rated video queen. Oh, yeah. They actually sample that and just say Vanessa with the singing career. So it's like Vanessa with the singing career, Vanessa with the singing career, Vanessa with the singing career. And it's like they totally... I don't know if even Vanessa Williams knew what this sample was from, that it's actually talking about her X-rated video. But anyway, I thought that was really interesting that was a part of this album. But yeah, Vanessa Williams got a little bit of edge to her that is very, very interesting. But a lot of this is your typical middle-of-the-road, light rock, light R&B stuff. Starts off pretty strong, though, with those with track 2 and 3, though. I like those. And then Save the Best for Last just has such a nostalgia for me, even though it is definitely middle-of-the-road, light rock type stuff. It's nostalgic because I just remember being in a video store with that song. So yeah, I give her a little bump up there. Vanessa Williams in the comfort zone. It's my ranking of 140 albums from 1991 and a year for my musical listening, including a lot of aggressive metal and hard alternative rock, punk rock thrown in there every once in a while. Just basically more hard stuff. But there were some really light moments in there as well. Like this album from Talk Talk called Laughing Stock, featuring, of course, lead singer Mark Hollis, who passed away in 2019, unfortunately. I first heard of Talk Talk, I think, when a lot of people did, back in 1984 or 83, when they had the song It's My Life. That's pretty much their only U.S. hits, and it really wasn't even around for that long, but I liked it. Like, that was one of those songs I liked it the very first time I heard it. And I was like, man, this is really cool. And then it just was on the radio a few times, was on the video shows a few times, and then it was gone. And luckily I taped it on a cassette and got the 45 later, and it just went away. But and then of course it came back when that ridiculous cover from No Doubt, that no thanks, but that's how unfortunately a lot of people know that song. But it is a song from the English band Talk Talk. Now this album here, Laughing Stock, is definitely not pop music. This is a very sort of almost new age kind of thing. Not really new age in the fact that there's synths and things like that, because there are a lot of organic instruments, but it's very light and it's not very commercial or immediately accessible. This one is going to take a few listens, and this one needs to be listened to in the right mood at the right time, like maybe 2 o'clock in the morning. It's one of those type of things. Maybe a nice night drive with it turned up, you know, where there's not a lot of traffic noise and whatever, and the moon's out and it's pitch black outside and that kind of thing. You will need to turn this up. It's definitely not right there in your face, and it does have quite a landscape of sounds ranging from louder stuff to very, very quiet, and you really have to pay close attention to it. It's not the thing. I use this phrase all the time, but it really is true with this one as well. It's not the type of thing you listen to while you're doing the dishes. You know, it demands your attention. Highlight on here for me is a song called New Grass that shows up a little more than halfway through with the cymbal brushing and the really mellow guitar. It's a lot of that kind of thing. Very, very late night type of listen, like I said. There are moments on here where the music builds and builds and builds, like the New Ascension song. I think that's the second track on here. It builds up and then just cuts completely off. Like the end of side 1 of Abbey Road from the Beatles. It just cuts. I thought there was something wrong with what I was listening to. I'm like, whoa. But no, that's what it's supposed to do. So very light stuff. Again, not very immediate. It's going to take a few listens. Mark Hollis's vocals are not the poppy vocals you'll find in songs like It's My Life and Talk Talk, the song, and all of that. He is a very delicate voice here. It's almost the unsure type of singing. It doesn't really last through the whole album. I do wish he would start singing and start, you know, using his pipes, using his voice, add a little more to it. He doesn't, though. It's pretty lilting all the way through. That does it's a little off-putting at some times where it just turns into almost a croak, you know, but that's how he wanted to present the album. So the vocals are not a highlight. It is the music here that it does it. And like I said, very sparse in some places. Does have gradual builds in some places. It does have jazz trumpet in one song that we could have done without that. The song's called Taphead. Not my favorite on the album, but overall an experience that was unlike a lot of the stuff that I was listening to in 1991. And I did not hear this in 1991 or 1999 or 2009 or 2019. I never heard this album until about a year ago. So this one completely passed me by, but glad I finally had a chance to check it out. So it was all kind of new to me. But yeah, it's light, it's nighttime, it's a different sound, so you might want to check that out. If you don't like it after the first track, you're probably not going to like the whole thing. Talk Talk and Laughing Stock. And the countdown continues, and now it's Little Feat and their album after leaving Warner Brothers called Shake Me Up, and they've been with Warner since like the beginning. So this is the first one where they're out on an independent label, but still sounding very polished, very professional, great sonic quality on this. And the band is still got it. Pretty much. Obviously, Lowell George is long gone, but he's been replaced by Craig Fuller on the vocals. He's from Prairie League. He was on the J.D. Blackfoot Ultimate Prophecy album as well before that. Huge album around these parts. And so he's with Little Feat now doing all the vocals. You don't have Bill Payne on any vocals on this album. He's still doing the keyboards and piano and everything. And you've got Richie Hayward on the drums. So you got a couple of longtime members in the rhythm section here, still making things happen. A little bit of some variety on this album. You have some jazzy horns going on in the first part, and then by the second half, the horns are gone. And the Memphis horns actually play on a couple of tracks on this, but the jazzy horns are gone. They do a little bit of their signature sound, which I think on this album is where they sound the best, when they're just trying to do that slide guitar, Little Feat, southern rock kind of laid-back style, and do a little bit of light rock on the last track on here as well. The final track it goes in more of a soft rock kind of vibe there with keyboards and everything. And so they try a few different things. They got a song on here called Fast and Furious, where they try to do some straight up bar rocking out. That's not their style. I'm not as big on that track. And then there's a song on here called Boombox Car, which is a real disappointment. all about how the guy's driving around with his music, probably, I guess, I don't know, hip-hop music turned up too loud, and the whole car's booming, and the guy in Little Feat, you know, is just has had enough. He's gonna take his 12 gauge and blow out the tweeters, which I don't know what that does for stopping the bass, but I guess if somebody shoots out any of your speakers, you're probably gonna, you know, turn the radio off or turn the CD off or whatever. But it's just kind of lame, you know. I'm not the biggest hip-hop fan in the world, but I don't like hearing songs where, like, people are talking about somebody else has got their music up too loud, no matter what music it is. And it's just not a very good look, especially for a rock band, you know, from the 70s. You know, now the guy's like, oh, that's too loud, turn that down. Oh, I want to get my shotgun and shoot your speakers out. You're ruining my eardrums with that loud music. It's just not a very good look, man. It's just, you old fart, you know, come on, dude. You're supposed to be, you know, Little Feat, and you're complaining because the music's too loud. So that's definitely a low point on the album. But the first part of the album's pretty solid. You got solid musicianship, like I said. You got some nice tunes on here. That I think if you like Little Feat, you hear this album, it's not going to become your favorite Little Feat album. It's not Sailing Shoes or Dixie Chicken or anything like that. But I don't think you're going to be disappointed. I don't think you're going to hate it or anything. Bonnie Bramlett makes her return. She hasn't been with Little Feat since, I think, Sailing Shoes. And she's from around these parts as well, from Alton, Illinois. So great to hear her back in the fold. She's Bonnie Sheridan, actually, is her name. She's no longer Bonnie Bramlett. But great to have her back. Always a fan of her. And yeah, so Little Feat with a somewhat solid album with a couple of cracks in there every once in a while, like a little more towards the middle. But yeah, decent listen. So yeah, can't put it up really high with that ridiculous boombox car song, but yeah, here's where it is in the rankings. So as the ranking of 140 albums from 1991 continues, just a reminder that it is my ranking, it's my opinion. I am not going by how many other people love this. I mean, one of the albums I talked about and put way low at the list, somebody commented, well, this sold this many copies, so that many people can't be wrong. Opinions about it. It's not about right and wrong. It's about what I'm ranking these according to my listening experience and my opinion. I don't, two of them. That's how many I don't give about how many it sold, how many I definitely don't care about how many Grammy Awards it won, or any awards. I don't care about what critics said. This is my opinion. It's on my YouTube channel, so go figure, it would be my opinion. And so a lot of the stuff some of the stuff, or maybe one of the stuff that I've ranked very low, maybe you disagree with. Here comes a point where a lot of people are going to disagree with one that I'm ranking a little bit higher. Are you ready? And there's one that's coming up later on, not on this particular video of this, but in a later video when the numbers get even lower. There's an album coming up that I can't even believe I put that high, but we'll get to that when we get to that. I'm about to lose all credibility when that shows up. But right now, here's enough. It's Jesus Jones and Doubt. I think these guys get a bad rap because of that Right Here, Right Now song, which was pretty cool when it came out. It was a good song when it was released, and it was new, and it was talking about how, you know, I want to live in these times. I don't want to live in the past. And that's exactly how I was feeling in 1991. Like I said, I was 18, 19 years old. I think when this series first started, I said I was 17 and 18. Not very good at math. I was actually 18 and 19 in 1991. But yeah, I was feeling it. I was feeling like, yeah, I've done my whole Beatles phase and Monkees and Elvis when I was a little kid, and classic rock and punk from 1977. It's 1991, and I'm ready to, get my own music and do my own thing. And I love a lot of the new stuff that's coming out, and all of it. And right here, right now, this is where I want to be. I'm watching the world grow up. But I'm not going to quote the lyrics anymore. But that song just got way overplayed. And it's kind of ridiculous to play a song called Right Here, Right Now, There's No Place I'd Rather Be, 20 years after it's out. It doesn't have the same feeling, obviously. It was a song from the time. And this album kind of has a Manchester kind of sound, the Manchester sound. I'll talk about more of that when we get into albums that are still to come that do it a lot better. This one's a lot more of a pop approach to it, and it worked. I mean, it got them a huge hit, but there's other great songs on here. It's just a fun album with a lot of dancey kind of stuff on it, dance rock. You know, it's got the dance beat and the dance mix, but it's also got the guitar in there. That's pretty much the Manchester thing going on there. These guys, the first check I ever wrote, I got a bank account, and we were writing checks back then occasionally. And you're supposed to write checks for large purchases, but I'm cool. I'm going to write my first check at Camelot Music for 2 CDs. And this is one of them that I wrote my very first check for. The other CD is still to come in this ranking a lot later. But yeah, Jesus Jones Doubt, just fun, just goofy, just, the dance kind of stuff with the rock guitar mixed in. EMF does it better, but these guys did it pretty good. It's just that a lot of people forgot about this band or just know this band from the song Right Here, Right Now, which is, at this point, nobody wants to hear that damn song anymore, including myself. But the rest of the CD, kind of takes me back to 1991, because I definitely don't throw this on a lot, but it was fun to listen. I'm like, oh, this isn't too international, bright young thing, it's goofy, whatever. So I can't rank Jesus Jones too low. So forgive me if I rank the Jesus Jones Doubt album higher than probably it should have been. But it just brings back some memories for me. And again, this is all just my opinion based on my experience. Some of this stuff, I heard it when it was out, new, bought it when it was new. Some of the stuff I didn't discover for years or decades later. So we all have our different experiences. But my God, Toad the Wet Sprocket is definitely still the worst album on this list. I will stand by that all the way. In 1991, Michael Jackson released his album Dangerous, and Thriller, this is not. I remember 83, I was all about Thriller and thought Michael Jackson was just awesome, and just, watching all the videos and all that. And 1984 American Music Awards, when he was on that, the Motown 25th anniversary where he's moonwalking, was there for all of that. And then I discovered Prince, and Michael Jackson went way in the background. And then by the time Bad came out, I was just kind of like way off of the Michael Jackson train. And then Dangerous I hardly even heard. Was not into it in 91 at all. It was definitely more into rock stuff and not really paying attention to Michael Jackson anymore. Of course, it's hard to not see Michael Jackson when he's got a new album out at the time, so he was all over MTV and all over the radio and that kind of thing with some of the singles, but just wasn't really a fan. I'm not a fan at all of that New Jack sound, that especially the percussion of that. I never was a fan of that, like the Belle Biv DeVoe stuff. I didn't like that at all. Don't like the New Jack stuff. And this is Michael Jackson. See, the thing about Thriller that made it great, or one of the things that made it great, was it was so trailblazing. He was so ahead of everybody and just led the pack, and then everybody tried to follow him with everything from the just supreme production from Quincy Jones, the whole music video thing, taking music videos to a completely different level and then doing it again with the Thriller video and making mini movies with actual Hollywood directors and all of that with credits at the end. Nobody was really doing a lot of that, and Michael Jackson was way first on that kind of thing. He was, the dancing, the all of that. He was just such a like a trailblazer and blazing multiple trails at the same time. And then by the time Dangerous comes out, he's kind of a follower. He's following the trends like 2 years late, like the whole New Jack sound. That had been out since like 88, 89, and here he is doing it in, 91. And rapping and, all that with the song Black or White in the middle of that, and guest rappers and all that. That had all been done by other people, and he's sort of following trends. But, whatever, it still could have been excellent, to follow the trends, but it just, to my ears, it wasn't. I wasn't interested then. I heard it all the way through for probably only the second time when I was preparing for this video. And, yeah, it just kind of lays there. It's kind of similar all the way through. I will say the second half is better to me than the first part. Not a big fan of that very first track called Jam. I don't think that, I don't, it's just kind of there. I mean, the whole production of that with the percussion and everything sounds like the Fine Young Cannibals' She Drives Me Crazy, first of all, which came out, again, a couple of years earlier. And, yeah, actually, he's got a track on here called She Drives Me Wild, coincidentally. But, yeah, just wasn't into it. Actually, Will You Be There is probably my favorite song on here, and that's kind of out of character for me to have the big... It's this just... It's one of the tracks on here that actually sounds like a fully realized song. with the whole like choir coming in and the whole melody and everything. It's definitely it's the highlight on here for me. A lot of the rest of it just sounds like, you know, kind of half-hearted, you know, just a percussion track with him doing his jam, ain't too much for me. Which for that vocal, didn't he win a Grammy for that, or was nominated for a Grammy? That's like not really even a vocal. So again, with the stupid Grammys. When you hear that sound, it's time to talk about Melvins. I think it was their third album that came out in 1991 called Bullhead. I didn't catch on to these guys until the one after this, Houdini, so I had to backtrack. But yeah, they were right on the forefront of, we used to call it sludge rock. I don't think anybody calls it that anymore. I think it's more just, I guess it's called stoner rock or something like that. But we used to call it sludge rock, and it's just this really slow kind of bass and low tune guitar, just kind of, you know, it sounds like a Black Sabbath album getting played a little bit too slow. Just this. The first song is 8.5 minutes long. It's called Boris. And if you're playing that and you're like, this is not my thing at all, then you might as well shut the whole thing off, because you're not going to like the rest of it. There are some more up-tempo stuff on there. Like, I think it's the fourth track called It's Shoved, where it gets a little bit more up-tempo with the drums, especially starting out off. But these guys are just full on. This is the kind of thing you just want to sit next to a speaker and just have it pounding in your head when you're on maybe some sort of substance or something like that. It is definitely not for everyone. Melvins are not. It is, you know, there's bands that kind of came along in the 2000s, like Sleep. You know, bands like that kind of get, you know, it's said that they're kind of inspired by Black Sabbath. They certainly are. They have a Black Sabbath type sound, you know, the kind of that kind of, what is it, groovecore, whatever, metal, whatever it's called. Kind of the forefront of that. But I think some of those bands were kind of inspired by Melvins, too. They don't get talked about a lot anymore. They used to in the 90s. They were kind of friends with the guys from Nirvana, especially Kurt Cobain. And so, you know, they got in the press a lot, and at least the, you know, the college music press, the Spin magazine, and Maximum Rock and Roll, CMJ, stuff like that. And, yeah, it's just this slow, grinding, like I said, bass heavy, low guitar, but the drums are pretty clear, though. That's the great thing about it. It doesn't have a sludgy drum sound. And if you want a drum solo, speaking of the 70s, there is one at the end of this album. The track called Cow is a drum solo, but it's probably not the kind of drum solo you're thinking of if you haven't heard it. It's not the big, fast, you know, try to like play the whole kit, you know, and cymbals crashing, and, you know, we're going to get boom, 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 you know, as fast as you can. This is just a slow drum solo, if you can imagine. You got to check it out. But on the tracks that do have vocals, the vocals from Buzz fit right into that kind of music as well. And it's the kind of music that if you were to get it on a 7-inch single, you'd probably have a half-hour argument with your friends about what speed this is supposed to be getting played on. So again, Melvins, you got to check it out, man. But it is not for everyone. Junkyard is a band that had a couple albums out, just your basic bar rock, but some pretty good bar rock. It's a pretty good band. They had an album called Sixes, Sevens, and Nines in 1991, and they're one of those bands, they sound like they probably have been playing bars and clubs and everything for years and years and years, got really good, and just got signed to Geffen, came out with an album, and then the musical landscape changed. They came out with another album, this one, and then they were pretty much never heard from again. So yeah, that's the quick story of Junkyard, as far as I would assume. But yeah, fun stuff. Not really overly fun, though. They're not a hair band. They're not glam rock, so there's a lack of sleaze here. There's a lack of outrageousness. There's a lack of double entendres. You just got pretty much straightforward, kind of late 80s sounding rock in 1991. Interesting thing about this album, you got back-to-back songs with the same theme. You got Nowhere to Go But Down and Misery Loves Company, where the lead singer in both songs has got this person that's bothering him with all of their problems and all of their misery, and he just like is like, dude, get away from me. And in the very next song, you got the girl bringing him down with all her problems and all her misery and trying to brush off the misery onto him. And he's like, get away from me. I don't want your misery either. So I don't know what kind of friends this guy had. But apparently he was the guy that everybody just unloaded on with all their issues and their problems. And he was just having none of it. So there's that couple of tracks. Blues was their big song. I'm drinking my blues again. But that's on the other album. That's not on this one. So this one didn't really have any songs really that I remembered. I remembered a couple off of their first one. I can just name, right away how they go. But this was the follow-up. I don't think it did as well as the first one. And then, like I said, you got that musical landscape changing, and then they pretty much fall right off. But not before putting out the song Throwing It Away, which is on here, where the guy's like, I'm just going to throw away all the drinks. I'm going to throw away all the, bottle. Song starts off with, I woke up with a cold one in my hand. How do you do that? Think about it. How do you wake up with a cold one in your hand? Unless you were asleep and like somebody just put it there cold and then you woke up. Because I would think if you're so drunk and whatever that you fall asleep with a drink in your hand, by the time you wake up, it's not going to be a cold one anymore. It's going to be a room temperature one. But I guess starting off the song with woke up with a room temperature one in my hand it just doesn't have that, that snap, that flow. So I get it, but you can't wake up with a cold one in your hand, man. That doesn't make sense. But decent rock album, decent straight ahead rock from Junkyard. So we're up to David Lee Roth's solo album now. A Little Ain't Enough, and it is. I know listening to this now, it sounds different than it did in '91 to my ears, just because back then, all this kind of stuff was starting to go away. You know the history of all this about grunge coming in and the kind of the alt punk stuff coming in and all that, and the extreme metal and whatever, and the hair bands and the boogie rock and all that kind of stuff starting to wane out. And that's when this comes out, and it just really, at that time, sounded like, another David Lee Roth album, whatever. Listening to it now, it's not quite so bad. It's your basic, like I said, like boogie rock kind of stuff. It's David Lee Roth doing his thing, shabop, shaboobie-da-bop-bop, whatever. I don't think he actually does that a lot in the album, but it's, the hot girls are over here, and the rocking over here, and drinking, and all that kind of stuff. The devil's on the cover, laughing it up in a profile. Blackface photos in the book, though. I don't know why we have to have that, but so A Little Ain't Enough from David Lee Roth. This was at the time Van Halen's putting out For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. Huge runaway hit with those guys. Ted Templeman's back with them. Bob Rock is producing this. Doesn't really have like a big Bob Rock kind of sound, though. It has nice production, though. It sounds like a great sonic quality. But the songs kind of lack a little something, and what they're lacking is Van Halen. That's what they're lacking. Van Halen at this point has made it a point to kind of make David Lee Roth the enemy, and they have done that at this point for like 5 years or more. About 5 years, 4 or 5 years. And it's one of those things where a lot of people were in Camp David Lee Roth or Camp Van Halen. If you like one, you can't like the other so much. And David Lee Roth is coming off looking like the chump because he's had a couple of albums out at this point that have really not done very much, like Skyscraper. Van Halen just putting out, big album after big album, explosive songs all over MTV, all over the radio. Been a while since David Lee Roth's done California Girls and Yankee Rose at this point. So I don't even know if this was on MTV all that much. I'm not even sure what the singles are. It does have a song on here called Last Dance. The beginning of that sounds like Walk This Way. You got songs that have boogie piano in it and horn sections. You got that, the Dogtown Shuffle or whatever. That's got like the really cheesy keyboards in it. We're way late for that at this point. And it's not a bad album. It's just like, it's just missing Van Halen. That's what, David Lee Roth, when he was in Van Halen, I think one of the main things about that, with people loving that, including myself, is you had this obnoxious front man just being Mr. Showbiz, being Mr. Flash and whatever, and with the stage banter and the shabop. But then you had this killer guitarist over here that was just over in the corner just smiling at him, wailing away. You had Michael Anthony, who is just a great dude all around. And you had this incredible drummer, and everybody knew everybody. Everybody knows everybody in Van Halen, you know, and all that kind of stuff. There were these big personalities. And now David Lee Roth, I mean, yeah, he's got great people playing with him, but you never hear about them. Like, you never heard about Steve Vai or any of those people. You just heard, it just says David Lee Roth, and it's all about him. And yeah, it doesn't work as well. But the songs aren't horrible. The album's not horrible. It's just not catching fire for whatever reason. But it does sound a lot better now, all these years later, to me anyway, than it did when it first came out in 1991. And I think the hardest rocking song on here is the best one. The guitars are cranked up. He sounds like he's rocking out. It's called Baby's on Fire. And it's really funny that that's the best song on here, because it's also the name of a Sammy Hagar song from completely different song. But in 1982, Sammy Hagar had a song called Baby's on Fire. So I don't know why David Lee Roth would call a song that. Does he not know that? I don't know. And so the countdown continues, my ranking of over 100 albums from 1991, with the only time I'm going to show a cassette in this video series, and that honor belongs to the Cycle Sluts from Hell. I'm not sure how well that shows up there. The Cycle Sluts from Hell. I got this on a cassette, I think in 93 or so. I saw it in the store for $1. And, you know, there was no CD of it. I wasn't buying a lot of cassettes in 1991. I think this might have been the only one that I bought. And just because it was $1 and it said Cycle Sluts from Hell. And it's on Epic, so it's on a major label. It's not just some nonsense. I mean, this is a legitimate, this is a great sounding album. This has got great musicians on it. They know what they're doing. The female singing, what are they, a quartet, I believe, sound great. Songs like I Wish You Were a Beer, and with lyrics like, hey there, poser, and then they got another one called By the Balls, or maybe it's By the Balls. It's either By the Balls or By the Balls. I can't remember. I do remember, though, that this group has members named Honey One Percenter. There's She Something of Ice, and Venus Penis Crusher are members of this group, these Cycle Sluts from Hell. Like I said, they probably would have done more. This is a really fun album, you know, and it's not junky, it's not clunky, it's not a bunch of lo-fi, you know, just people putting you on. It's actually well done, but they're called Cycle Sluts from Hell, so they only had the one album, and then they were pretty much forgotten about if they were even thought of in the first place, because like I said, I never even heard of them in 1991. I didn't even know what this was, and I just picked it up, and then, oh, Cycle Sluts from Hell, what's this? It's $1, okay. And then, like, I think it was like a month later, I saw them on Beavis and Butthead, and they approved, by the way. They gave it a rave review. I Wish You Were a Beer, I think, was the video that was playing. Bolt Thrower and War Machine, that is their third album, came out in 91. I didn't really start hearing a lot. I didn't get exposed a lot to like the really extreme metal, the death metal and stuff like that until about 93, 94. So when I first heard this album, it was a couple of years old already. But this one, Carl Willett's vocals, he's the lead singer, they aren't as quite as demonic and as monstrous as a lot of the death metal stuff, where it's just like, you know, just the corny stuff like Cannibal Corpse or whatever. He sounds more like somebody with a really, really, really sore throat. But again, just like a lot of the death metal type lyrics, not a lot of variety. It's basically one tone throughout most of it, and it gets a little, you know, it starts getting a little stale about track 6 or 7. You're like, okay, you know, I'm ready to move on. So, but very energetic, obviously, and just the kind of great thing to crank up when you're in the mood for it. This particular recording, I love the way that it has the depth. They've turned the guitars down in the mix, and the drums, I love the drum sound in this. They are just very, very clear and very clean, and just, just very organic sounding, very loud though. So when you crank this up to hear the vocals and guitars, those drums are just fucking pounding. And that's a great mix on this. Now, I'm sure if this came out in like 98 or 99, they would have done that loudness war thing and mixed everything way up and kind of ruined that depth. And I'm checking this out, and I'm like, man, I used to love the way this thing sounded. And then I found out that it actually has been remixed. Something called like a full dynamic range version or something like that. I didn't listen to it, but I'm assuming they cranked the guitars way up and just made everything loud. I would definitely prefer the original mix. I've done a whole video on my feelings on remixes, so I'm not going to repeat all that. But, you know, a couple of tracks on here, like Cenotaph, he does kind of crank up the guttural kind of whoa, 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 just a little bit. But most of it just sounds like a guy, like I said, yelling with a very, bellowing really, with a very sore throat. So if you're looking for something extreme from kind of the earlier period, 91, check out some Bolt Thrower and the cover art, you know, with the sword and all that. Just and the back cover has like a severed head on a spike. So, you know, it checks all the boxes. Continuing 140 albums ranked from the year 1991, we are up to Pixies and Trompe le Monde, or what I was told is French for fool the world. So trompe means to fool someone. You know, that's perfect. This is a really fun album, a very loud album, kind of like power popped with the power cranked all the way up, almost to punk rock levels, especially the song The Sad Punk. But the thing about this one is there's really an opportunity here for some really nice melodies to creep in, some really nice song structures, but they cut everything off. Everything is like 2 minutes long. And I get it, punk songs are 2 minutes long, and oldies from the 50s, you know, they were able to do a whole song in 2 minutes and just make it legendary. But here it seems like you just want a little more from a lot of the songs on here, and they just end. Some of them under 2 minutes. So that would be my one kind of negative about this album is, you know, some of the songs are just not long enough, and then there's too many songs, and so they're all very short. But what's the one, The Bird Dreams of the Olympus Moms? Now that's got more of a fully kind of realized sound structure to it, so that one's cool. A lot of it's cool. It just seems like it's not giving you enough. I want a little more from the Pixies. On the other albums, they do the 3.5, 4 minute conventional length songs, but here, man, there's just some, like the very first song, right? I'm just ready to, and then boom, it ends. But, you know, I guess always leave them wanting more. They do Head On here, which was the Jesus and Mary Chain song, so a nice version of that, really cranked up version of that, like a lot of this. So fun listen, kind of frustrating in places because you want the songs to continue, but overall, you know, a lot of people love this album, and I can certainly hear why. It's Pixies and Trompe le Monde. So that does it. Another piece of the puzzle, wrapping up with another video segment of the long video series, the top 140. I keep wanting to say top 140 albums. It's really just a ranking of 140 albums from the year 1991. I'm sure maybe there are better albums that I'm not putting on the list because I didn't hear them. You know, I have mentioned before that I'm not ranking hip-hop albums. I'm not ranking country albums or classical or jazz. So there are albums that are missing. But these are just 140 and then ranking those. So this is another segment of that wrapping up. And I sincerely hope you will join me for the future segments as I crawl all the way to number one. But the good thing is, at least, you know, hopefully the albums are getting better and better. They are, in my opinion, anyway. So thank you so much again for watching. I'm Robert Fithen, and hopefully I'll talk to you again next time.